She was found beside the highway like a discarded rag doll, naked, face down, strangled. Her red hair was the only detail that stood out. A shocking splash of auburn against the cold Tennessee soil. No ID, no purse, no car. Just another Jane Doe dumped on the side of the road in the early morning dark. The trooper who found her would later say it was like she'd been dropped from the sky. That was 1985. What no one realized at the time, what would take years of quiet deaths and unconnected cases across multiple states, was that she wasn't the first, and she wouldn't be the last. They would all share one thing in common: red hair, and a killer who was never caught. The first known victim was found in Wetzel County, West Virginia, in 1983. A young woman, white, slender, red hair. She was dumped beside a guardrail on Route 250 just outside Littleton. Her body was in such bad shape, investigators believed she'd been dead at least a couple days. No clothing, no ID, no missing persons match. They buried her under the name Jane Doe, WV 1983. No one came forward to claim her. The coroner's report said she'd died from strangulation, bruises on her neck, defensive wounds. She hadn't gone quietly. 2 months later, another red-haired woman was found in a similar position. This time in Henderson, Kentucky, just off Interstate 64. Again, nude, dumped, no identification. Again, strangled. Both victims were estimated to be in their late teens to mid-20s. Similar builds, similar hair. No dental records or missing persons alerts matched either woman. Police departments in the early 80s didn't talk to each other much. There were no shared databases, no centralized way to connect crimes that happened in different states. So it wasn't until more bodies started appearing, scattered across the southeastern U.S., that anyone noticed a pattern. Tennessee, 1985. Highway 25, near Cheatham County. Another young woman, red hair, strangled. She had no ID, but she did have something unusual. She was found inside a white refrigerator. Someone had stuffed her inside it, shut the door, and dumped the whole thing in a ditch. The outside of the refrigerator had the words "Superwoman" spray painted across it in black. Whoever had done it wasn't trying to hide her. They were making a statement. The victim was later given the nickname Suzanne after a coroner's office clerk picked the name randomly. They had to call her something. She had freckles, fair skin, and the same small build as the others. Some investigators believed she may have been from the Midwest or Appalachia based on her dental structure. Around the same time, hundreds of miles away in Knox County, Tennessee, another red-haired woman was found. She had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and dumped beside a highway. They named her Betsy. Then came Lisa, Tina, Sherry. All fake names given by investigators who had no idea who they were actually burying. But they all had red hair. They were all young, and they had all been discarded like garbage. By 1985, the FBI finally stepped in. A profiler suggested that the killings might be the work of a long-haul truck driver. The theory made sense. The victims were all found near major highways, often across state lines. Some were discovered near truck stops, others in ditches just off the interstate. The killer clearly had the ability to move freely between states, stay under the radar, and pick up victims who wouldn't be missed. Many of the women were believed to be hitchhikers, sex workers, or runaways. Women who moved from place to place. Women who didn't always tell people where they were going or who they were going with. The killer knew that. He counted on it. The case began to be known, first quietly among law enforcement, then in the press, as the Red-Headed Murders. Years passed. More bodies. No answers. In Greene County, Tennessee, a man walking his dog discovered yet another red-haired woman in a ditch. She had been out there for days. Animals had begun to scavenge. Her hands were bound. She had been strangled. It took authorities weeks to figure out that she'd been seen just days earlier at a local truck stop. Surveillance footage, blurry and outdated, showed her climbing into the cab of a semi with an unidentified man. The truck was white, no visible logos. He was never found. One of the only victims to ever be positively identified was named Tina Farmer. She was found near Jellicoe, Tennessee in 1985. Her body was partially frozen, wrapped in a blanket, and dumped just off the interstate. She had red hair. For decades, she was a Jane Doe. But in 2018, a DNA sample taken from the body was matched through genealogical research to a family in Indiana. Her name was Tina Marie Farmer. She had disappeared while traveling from Indiana to North Carolina with a trucker she had just met. She was 21 years old. That same year, a suspect was finally arrested in her murder. His name was Jerry Leon Johns, a truck driver from Cleveland, Tennessee. He had been arrested back in 1985 for kidnapping and attempting to kill another woman, a red-haired hitchhiker. He had bound her, strangled her, and left her for dead. Miraculously, she survived. At the time, the case wasn't linked to the others. But after Johns died in prison in 2015, his DNA was tested against cold case evidence. It matched Tina. Was he the redhead killer? Maybe, but maybe not. Because even after Johns' death, other women kept turning up. In 2018, high school students from Elizabethton, Tennessee, working on a class project, actually reignited national interest in the case. The students had heard about the red-headed murders from a local news clipping. They reached out to police, compiled old case files, and published their findings. They even gave the unknown killer a nickname, the Bible Belt Strangler. Their project was picked up by multiple media outlets. The case exploded online. Within months, true crime forums and podcasts were digging into the mystery again. Photos of the red-haired victims, some computer-generated, others drawn by forensic artists, began circulating. And then something incredible happened. One of the Jane Does was identified. Her real name was Elizabeth Lamotte. She had been a teenager living at a youth home in New Hampshire. She disappeared in 1984. For decades, her family thought she'd simply run away. In reality, she had made it all the way to Tennessee, where she met a man who strangled her and left her on the side of the highway. Her red hair had kept her nameless for over 30 years. Even today, most of the victims remain unidentified. We don't know how many there were. We don't know if it was one killer or several. We don't know why the red hair mattered, whether it was a fetish, a preference, or just a coincidence. Some believe the hair was symbolic to the killer. Others think it simply made the victims more memorable, and therefore more likely to be noticed. Which is ironic, because so few were. The FBI closed its official task force on the red-headed murders in the 1990s, citing lack of evidence and overlap with other cases. But in 2021, Tennessee's Unidentified Human Remains Task Force reopened the files. They've asked for new tips, new leads, new DNA samples from families of missing women. Because the truth is, there are still red-haired Jane Does in county morgues across the country, still buried under fake names, still waiting to go home. The red-headed murders remain one of America's most haunting, unsolved mysteries. A string of lives cut short, identities erased, families left with silence, and the question no one can shake. Was he out there for years? Or is he still out there now, driving, watching, looking for another flame-haired girl, alone on the side of the road? Thank you for listening to The Lantern's Tale. Subscribe for more true stories, if you dare.